Hey, Al. Say hi to the camera. Just a lazy day. I'm working on some more original compositions. Put a challenge on myself, or a goal, to write 5 new tunes in a month. I used to do about 4 at one point. I have some opportunities coming up to showcase some original tunes, and I think it's about time to look inside and figure out where I am musically right now, and hopefully bring out some great music. If I heard correctly, today is Leo Fender's birthday, and I happen to have my Telecaster out with me today. I actually started with a guitar very similar to a Stratocaster made by Peavey. It was called a Peavey Raptor. Unfortunately, that guitar is not with me anymore. If the stories are true from one of my childhood buddies, then after I let him borrow it, him and his brother happened to, I guess, fall down on the neck and break it. So I don't have the original guitar anymore, that one. Also have my Fender out here with, not my Fender, but my Gibson. Got the Les Paul. And it's time to do a little practicing. The humidity's coming back. It's a nice, beautiful day. Got some clouds coming out. But let's get to practicing. Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome to vlog number 4. In today's vlog, I'm going to discuss something that I've been asked about pretty often, and something I've been thinking about lately in general, just because as a musician, as someone who's trying to go out and perform, we're constantly looking for gigs and opportunities out there. So, what I want to talk about today is a question on that I was asked. I've been asked when I've done clinics before, or just online. Sometimes people will ask the question, when I was leaving out of grad school, what was my next step? What did I do, and how did I get gigs? So after I left out of grad school, I came back to this area, which is in the Cincinnati area, and that there were some opportunities that I had to make some music in the Philadelphia area, but my wife had a more stable position than what I did. So the smartest choice at that time was to go ahead and come back here. So when I came back here, there was 2 things that I knew that I needed to do. And one was to secure some sort of a teaching position, whether that was trying to get into a university of some sort as an adjunct, or doing private lessons through studios around the area or on my own. And at that time, I think things like Skype were probably already there, in online video-based lessons where you could do live streaming. I have always been a little behind the technology, so I didn't know about that, and I'm not so sure at that time, and we're talking like 2010. I'm not so sure if it was that popular at the time, if people were used to it yet. So I didn't even consider that at all. But I knew that one component had to be teaching, and the other component was to hurry up and start trying to figure out how to get gigs. And sometimes I think that's one part that gets overlooked, is how, once you're out of school, how do you go about getting gigs? For teaching, I contacted multiple studios, and through some back and forth email and interviewing, I landed a teaching position at the Westchester Academy of Music. At first, it was subbing that I done to get my foot in the door, and then I started to be given, some students to take on, and over time that built up. And then I also had an opportunity later on at Titman School of Music, and I wasn't trying to secure any students on my own. I lived in an apartment. It's as some of you probably know, it's kind of frowned upon to try to bring students in, especially like playing music and you have neighbors. Although with guitar, especially electric, you can keep it kind of quiet. But still, you're creating unnecessary traffic for the apartment complex. So I did secure a couple students, but it wasn't very long lasting. Once we bought a house, then I started to open up the opportunity for students to come here. And that caught on for a bit. I also started to open up online lessons through Skype. And then I also, as some of you know, based on the videos I put out, I also have video lessons that I put out and sell on musiclessons.com. I also managed to get into a teaching position at Mount St. Joseph University through a good friend of mine who happens to be in charge of the music department as of now. So I knew that the teaching part would be, maybe a bit more stable. I had worked jobs in the past, retail-based jobs, and I knew that I didn't want to go that route. I wanted to stay away from that if I could. I'm not trashing on that at all because it was a great learning experience when I did do it. But I knew that I wanted to pursue things that were just based solely in music. As far as the gig part, performing, I didn't know really too many people around this area at all. There were some that I went to undergrad with that was around the area, but I didn't know anybody in the Cincinnati area. There was one person I did know, and that's the same one that I still perform with from time to time, although his schedule has gotten more busy. We went to undergrad together, a buddy of mine who's still in the area, and when I came back into the area, I did contact him. He's a vibraphonist. With that said, I pursued gigs that were solo guitar gigs because I felt that was probably the best way to go about getting into places with having less people in the group. I could go in, it would be less of a cost for the venue, and therefore I had a better opportunity to get in and then develop a relationship and then bring other musicians in. So the first thing that I done was I wasn't big into Facebook at that time. The only thing that I had was phone book. So I picked up a phone book, and any place, any kind of restaurant, like small art gallery type places, anything to me that seemed like it may have music, I started calling them up. And I would call up multiple places day after day. And I would take different approaches. Sometimes I would call them in the early part of the day, sometimes in the latter part of the day. I started to figure out that there were certain times of the day where it worked a bit better to get a hold of people. Within an hour of some of these businesses opening worked well. Certain nights of the week, I think Tuesdays and Wednesdays worked well for me at that time when I was doing it. I got told no a lot, and some of the businesses that I called, there was some pretty negative feedback and questioning why am I even calling, why would I think that the place has music. But once again, I didn't know if these places had music or not. My intention was just to figure out, hey, where can I play, where can I get in. So through doing that, I did manage to get into some places early on, and I done solo guitar gigs. Now prior to that, I had not been doing solo guitars, so that was a big challenge for me to go into something I wasn't quite used to. It really makes you grow as a musician. So that was one aspect of trying to figure out what to do. As I was in the area longer, I started to hook up a few regular gigs. So I brought my buddy in to play vibes, and we would do duos. And then I started to think maybe I need a bass player. So I started to hear some names thrown out, and I started contacting bass players. There was a gig that we had managed to get into where it was just a trio, bass, vibraphone, and guitar. And I felt like it was kind of lacking. It sounded great, and I love playing in those settings, and I still do. But it was lacking for the particular venue we were at. I just felt it wasn't enough. So then I started to ask the bassist, "Hey, do you know any drummers?" He's, "Sure, no drummer," and he knew a few, and he recommended a couple, and I contacted the drummer, and there you go. We had a quartet at that time, and it was. I was coming up with some original tunes. I already had original tunes before that, but I was also doing a lot of standards, and I still throw in standards. You guys know that if you watch my channel, I throw in standards. There's tunes I like, and I like playing around with the tunes and trying to, explore those certain tunes more and more and more. So when we had this regular gig set up, just with any other regular gig, at some point it comes to an end. And unfortunately, we were thrown from night to night. There were people who were starting to come in. I renamed the group. I called the group Sound Infusion. We were starting to do things that were, geared more towards a funk and a rock kind of thing. Started using a lot of distortion in the tunes. I was having a great time, but we were being switched out night to night. People would come in, ask where we were. We weren't there. So that really hindered, I think it hindered a following at that point, because we were working together a lot. I tried to keep a particular set of people together, that particular group together. So anytime I'd call up a place to do a gig, if one of them couldn't do it, then I wouldn't do the gig. And I felt like that was the best way for me to work with these guys and develop a bond and to gain a lot of musical trust. So we lost that gig, and then the place eventually shut down. Now, there's been a few other gigs that I've continued to do over the years. There's one place called Marty's Hops and Vines that I've been doing ever since the end of 2010 or 2011. And we do it pretty much every month. We go in once a month, and it's a great place, and Marty and his staff are amazing. So just want to throw that out there, because they were one of the ones that was one of the first places that actually allowed for me to come in and bring a group in, and gave me an opportunity, as well as another place called the Greenwich. So I continued to call places up. I was hearing names, but I still had a set group of people I was playing with, because I was comfortable with playing with those people. So I got back on the phones anytime I lost a gig. The way I look at it is, once the gig's over, it's like a job. You have that one, and then it's over, and then you find another job and another job and another job. So I got back on the phones and started calling again and again and again. And I was getting some ups and downs. Email sometimes worked. It's hit and miss. As time has went on, though, with the gigs, I've gotten more into using Facebook as a tool to reach out to people, and using the messaging on Facebook, because I find that there's times where I can really get through to a business if I use that particular method. And that's one thing that's changed, is that going from picking up the phone and calling venues, I don't really call places as much as what I used to. I would like to call and talk to people. There's times when you call places and you just never can get a hold of the person that you're trying to get a hold of. You call back on the days that the person is supposed to be there and you can't get a hold of them. And I understand that there's tons of bands that want to get into all these different venues, but unfortunately, it sometimes panned out, but other times it was just, I never could get a hold of people. So email sometimes I could, but once Facebook, I started using Messenger on Facebook, that helped out greatly. So that's something I would try. Um, and I think that we all need to step up and do those type of things with gigs and trying to find gigs. I've never been one to sit back and wait for people to call me. I've always had a particular thing that I wanted to do. I want to play my music. I'm okay with going in and playing with other groups, and I do participate and creating music with other great musicians doing their thing. But I really am into going out and making it happen and not sitting back and waiting for someone to call me. So as gigs have come and gone, I have called up multiple people to come out and perform with me. People that I heard, I'd hear names and they're like, oh, yeah, that person's really great and this person's really great. I know that there's some people take the approach of going out, seeing the person, hanging out with the person, maybe seeing if they can sit in on their gigs. My approach was different. I would get gigs and then I would call those people up to come out and play with me on my gigs. That way there was an opportunity already set. There was a paying gig that was already established. So that's the way that I've handled playing with people that I like to perform with. It's a tough thing doing this and trying to find more gigs. Things come and go, but as time has went on, I've ventured out into other places outside of here. There's some places that I try to justify going to at this stage in my life. There's gigs that I would like to do, but I really have to consider. Doesn't make a lot of sense right now where I'm at in my life. Is it beneficial for the bigger goal I have? Is it beneficial for my family? And when I'm the work family balance, which I wrote a blog about this. I don't really feel that there's a balance in this. Music is all the time around me. It's always there. So it's not really a balance. It's something that's always present. So yeah, as far as getting gigs and my approach, it's changed a little bit over time. But the main things is the teaching and the performing aspect for me. Those two things, and now going into putting out more content through YouTube, on Facebook and Instagram. Those are things that I hesitated doing in the beginning, and no matter how much I might not like it and other people might not like it, it's something that's here and it's not going to be gone anytime soon. So we all might as well get used to it and figure out the best way to put our story out there, our journey, documenting what we're doing. So I hope that helps any of you guys that are wondering, what did I do for gigs? Oh, and I've also been asked about, did I go out to any jam sessions? Did I do that approach? There's only one time that I recall going to a jam session, and at that time I was already performing under my own name, and I never really done the jam session thing either. And I know that a lot of people talk about, and I understand, I get it. A lot of people talk about going out and hanging with other musicians. I get that. And I don't like excuses for things, but for me, I justify it like this. I go out and perform and teach. I have opposite schedule as my wife. I have a son, so I have a family. My schedule is opposite of my wife. I would like to be able to be around her. Okay? So when I teach, and sometimes I've taught up until 10:30 at night. When that happens, when I leave to go teach in the evening, and I come home and she's going to bed and I stay up a little bit longer, we don't see each other as much. And most of any of you who do this for your career, your living, what you're pursuing, you know this to be pretty common. So if I want to spend time with her, then I have to prioritize. What am I going to use my time on? So to me, it's not that I don't respect what other people are doing and I don't want to go out and see other people. It's just when I'm done doing my teaching, my wife's done with her work, I would like to be able to spend time with her, and especially when the three of us can spend time together, that's what I want to do with the time that when I'm not teaching and performing. So it's no disrespect to anybody who's doing that. It's just where I'm at in my life, it's not something that I go out and do because I feel like there's the family life, that type of thing to me is more of a priority, and it should be. So no, I never really did take the other approach. And earlier on, maybe I should have. Although when I was in grad school, I did do a jam there. But I mean, that was that was at the university, and that's a little bit different situation. But thanks, for all your questions, guys. If you want to know anything about what I do, my approach, and about gigs or about teaching, then leave a comment below. Ask a question. I'd love to read some of your guys' approaches on how you do it and some of your feedback. So please leave your comments below. Please don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for another vlog next week.